Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
On today's episode, I want to talk about the Macan EV because I know that you're driving it.
I'm driving it.
I think that Matt Farah also bought one, and I haven't listened to his podcast in a while, but otherwise, I haven't heard anything about the Macan EV. So I want to get your take on that. I also want to talk about some new lap records, multiple, set by the Corvette ZR1.
Yeah, and I really like how they did this too. It's so
and
legit.
I want to talk about BMW keeping the V8 in the lineup in the future.
This is some great good news.
So those three things, plus we can go back and recap the auction of the car we were talking about last week, the Mercedes R129 SL600, and I also want to ask you about a rumor I heard. Speaking of Matt Farah and one of my former dream cars. So
Okay.
If it's legit, if it's kosher to talk about that.
I think so.
Okay, so let's start with the Macan. Porsche is, sucking eggs in terms of the stock, right? As we were talking about last week.
I know. I know.
They're taking a huge hit, I think an $800 million or euro write-down this year because of their EV business.
Yeah, their profit margin is going to slump as low as 10% this year, which is half of what management had floated before the IPO. I think the stock, like you mentioned, is at its lowest as it ever has been. Their market value is half of what it was in 2023. And a lot of that is due to problems with rolling out these EVs.
Right.
And so, and the EVs are the Taycan and the Macan. So far,
those are the only two EVs in their lineup, right?
Yeah, we're still awaiting the Mission X, which is the successor to the 918 Spider Hybrid, which they had sort of floated as an electric vehicle, and we don't have confirmation about whether or not that will be electric yet.
By the way, did I see you? I'm trying to remember. A couple years ago, before we started this podcast, I was in Munich, and the McDreamy guy from
Patrick Dempsey,
Grey's Anatomy,
yes,
was talking about driving in the Mission X in like some beer hall. I'm pretty sure I saw you there too. What? Were you there too?
I have been in Munich car show. I have been in beer halls in Munchen. Yes, I have. That could have been me.
You don't forget when you see McDreamy, right? Talking about driving Porsches.
That's true. Have you noticed that Orlando Bloom is now sort of the new face of Porsche in a way? I'm wondering, is McDreamy feeling slightly replaced because now there's another actor?
Maybe they felt like he betrayed them in going to Ferrari.
Possible.
When he did that movie with Kylo Ren of Star Wars.
You mean Ford versus Ferrari?
No, the Ferrari movie where Kylo Ren played Enzo.
Wait.
Patrick Dempsey played one of the race car drivers.
Oh my gosh, of course. You mean, what's his name?
And Penelope Cruz played...
But what's the guy's name? The actor.
Adam Driver?
Adam Driver, there you go. Yeah. I don't know Star Wars references, but I do know Adam Driver. And I think we decided that Penelope Cruz was the reason to watch that movie. Didn't we decide that?
Loved her. And I think Shailene Woodley was also the...
Yeah, she's good. She's cool.
Mistress.
She was the mistress.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's get back to the Porsche Macan.
Anyway, but
EV.
We digress.
I expect any Porsche, electric or not, to be amazing. So,
yes,
as a baseline, right? Is that
fair?
Completely.
And I have to say, the review for this, I still am in the middle of the test drive. The review will come out early next week. And I was so curious to try it because a lot of the problems that we're hearing coming from Porsche have to do with the implementation of the Macan specifically, both software issues, supply chain issues, delivery issues, delays at dealership, all of it. And so the problem with doing a product test drive is that probably none of those things are going to come up in the 3 days that I have to drive the vehicle. So my big disclaimer on this is that I am not owning this vehicle. I cannot anticipate what would happen after a month or two. And I also didn't have to wait a long time to receive my vehicle, all of which are legitimate complaints and problems. But when it comes to actually simply driving the product for a week, Matt, to your point, it's very good.
Yeah.
It's to your point, Porsche is not in the business of selling crap. And it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and it does it extremely well. I don't think you're going to fall in love and have a heart-to-heart romance with the Porsche Macan EV, but in terms of driving performance, and yesterday I drove it from my house in Hollywood up Angeles Crest to Newcomb's Ranch, and I did flog it because I really wanted to see what the battery was going to do in terms of retaining charge. And from the base of Highway 2 up to Newcomb's, it's 26 miles, and it's very hilly and windy. And I lost, I don't know, 10% maybe of battery charge, which is so good. So good. And of course, it regathered a lot of that coming back down. It's so fast. I'm not going to incriminate myself, but I would say that you can definitely probably hit 3-digit figures easily in this SUV on Highway 2. It's incredibly fast. It really smooths out the road over really crappy roads. I mean, LA has really bad road surfaces. I would say that it felt, it's a heavy vehicle, but it doesn't feel sluggish. You can feel the weight when you're going around a corner, of course, but it's not a sluggish weight. It's just an SUV.
And by the way, I think, and also me to some extent, we're spoiled by test driving these really nice cars all the time.
Very much so. Yes.
But for someone who doesn't get a lot of seat time in these $100,000+ vehicles, the interior, the intuitive setup of Porsche, like the build quality, it's so solid that I think someone who's not used to it is struck by how well they do at building cars, electric or ICE. Is that the case with this as well?
Absolutely the case. It's true, through and through from Porsche engineering. It's absolutely tight, quality, all of that. And I remember saying back in the day, before any automakers besides a few startups like Tesla were making electric vehicles, I would always say the OEMs aren't not making electric vehicles because they can't. They're waiting until they have to. So by that, I mean, once Porsche decided it needed to make EVs, it knows how to do it, and it knows how to do it well. This is not a startup trying to figure out how to make cars, which I think is really one of the negatives about many startup electric car companies, which is they don't have experience making cars. And making cars is very hard. A car is a very complex thing. And so it's really nice to be in an electric vehicle that is made by a proper car company, because Porsche knows exactly what it's doing. It's been making cars for almost 80 years now.
So in my experience, the NVH, which is kind of the noise, vibrations, and harshness of electric cars, is more difficult to get right than internal combustion engines. We've talked about this before, but if you're driving a car with a gas motor or diesel, especially, the motor itself makes so much noise.
Sure.
That's kind of the main thing you hear and experience. And if you're driving an electric car, Alex Roy has talked about this. The road noise is what you hear and experience, and any squeaks, right? Any rattles, if the headliner is loose. And so I think it's much harder to get it right on an EV. Absolutely.
There was none of that in the Macan. Of course, it has the synthetic electric drone, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. You can turn it off, although sometimes it wouldn't let me turn it off. And I need to ask Porsche about what instances wouldn't allow me to turn it off. But you're right. The inside of the car was nicely quiet. There wasn't undue road noise. It just feels like an actual proper vehicle. I would say there are 2 charging ports, one on either side of the car, and they're kind of tricky to open. Because you can push on the center screen. You can push like a little icon to open them from inside the car. And then to open them from outside the car, you put your hand on them and then they'll slide open. And then I guess, I was told this in an email, they close automatically when you drive away. It's not necessarily intuitive to like, it's so easy as push this button to open the charge port and then you can just push it close. It's a little more complex than that. That's a little quirk that I didn't think was especially seamless.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think let's talk about
By the way,
price.
So not a Macan, but
yeah,
on my 911 and maybe on all of them, I loved filling it up because the gas tank was on the front right wing.
So like an actual race car.
Yeah.
So cool. It is so cool. I mean, the minute you pull up at the gas station and that's the setup and you just get out casually and just walk over and like, fill up your car and everyone's looking at you.
Special.
It does make you feel very cool. I myself. And then you try to act like you don't realize anyone's watching, but everyone is.
Well, I'm going to try and be more level-headed or even-handed when it comes to judging EVs. Because we talked about this last week. Some readers, some viewers, some listeners think that I'm too biased against EVs. And yesterday I actually sat down with the new chief financial officer of the Ford Motor Company.
Yes. Can I just finish one thought on the Macan?
Yeah.
So the Macan, I had the turbo electric edition. It's 630 horsepower, which was plenty. And the price starts at $105,000, which I actually think isn't crazy. The total price of the one I drove was $131,000. It's significantly more expensive than like an Audi electric SUV, but I don't know. I don't think for this type of buyer that's going to be a deterrent. That's my final thought.
A Macan buyer isn't the same as like a Turbo S buyer, a Cayenne Turbo S buyer.
You're right. You're right. But somehow I think perhaps, well, this goes into a bigger question. I was going to say the person who's buying an all-electric SUV is already a different animal. They're not like they're buying an EV for more of a philosophical reason than a utilitarian one. But I would say it seems like people don't necessarily want electric Porsches, period. And that's kind of what we're finding out, no matter how good they are. Like this electric Macan is great. It's great. It's in terms of how it performs and how it's built and everything. But if nobody wants an electric Porsche SUV, it doesn't matter how good it is. People don't want them. So that's the big question we'll have to find out.
Well, like I said, I'm trying to be more level-headed about or even-handed about EVs because of the critique that I think is fair that we got. And I sat down with the new CFO of the Ford Motor Company yesterday, Sherry House, who is so she clearly loves EVs. I was talking to her. Yeah. And she's an engineer at heart. She started her career at General Motors as an engineer, and she went to the General Motors Institute, the Kettering University. And then she became an investment banker after her MBA, and then she joined some tech companies. She worked for Waymo, but then she went to Lucid, and she was the CFO of Lucid for a couple of years. She brought them public, so that's a pretty cool experience.
Big deal. Yeah.
But she still is, I could just get the vibe from talking to her about a number of different issues, in love with EVs. She says her family, obviously, her husband also worked at Tesla. So she was basically saying, they've grown not just used to them, but they really appreciate them. I didn't ask her directly about, her relationship to EVs, but I'm just, from the conversation I had with her, I was kind of jazzed up myself to give EVs another go. And obviously, I'm going to be driving them here and there anyway, but to do it with a more open mind and to think about them potentially more passionately.
Yeah, it's interesting that she's at Ford now because, of course, when we think of Ford, we don't necessarily think of EVs at all. So it's really interesting to hear that there's someone who's truly passionate about them at this old American company.
Yeah, I think of, right or wrong, I think of GM because of the Hummer, right? and
Sure.
The Sierra EV that I drove. Obviously, Ford has a successful product in the Lightning, and they have the Mach-E, which Matt Farah was driving for years before he got the Macan EV.
I think Matt kind of missed being in something electric.
Yeah.
You know?
So I guess there are people out there. Maybe one day I'll become one of them. Maybe you will, Hannah.
Oh, I would totally take a Fiat 500e. And I know I keep beating that dead horse, but that was the most fun. I would also take an electric Vespa. That'd be cute. Or
I would love an electric Vespa.
Oh, I would for sure take that. I would definitely take a zero electric motorcycle. To me, the application for electric motorcycles is so fun. And I know this may be sacrilegious to you who are wearing a Harley Davidson baseball hat as we speak. But I got no skin in the game. Give me an electric motorcycle. I don't care. I think they're cool.
No, I don't disagree. I don't know if cool is the right word for me, but
they're kind of
I test drove an Energica.
Is that how you say it?
Like 10 years ago. And I had a great time. I've ridden Zeros. They're interesting.
Me too.
If an electric Vespa was properly powerful and had decent range, I would rather have that than like the 4-stroke 50 or 125 that they sell. I'd rather have an electric one. I just don't think they're quite there yet. And I definitely would not want a live wire, I have to say.
You know, I also rode the live wire when I was still in New York, and I thought it was nice. I thought it was, to me, honestly, Harley is probably not my brand of choice. Why wouldn't you want a live wire?
It's not what Harley's about or anything near it.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, I want Harley to be making motors that I feel like are barely legal to make. You know, they make 2-liter twins. Sure. I can't believe they're not regulated out of existence. And the sound, you know, I don't want a catalytic converter on it or a muffler. I just want straight pipes.
I get it.
And
can we go back to Ford for a second?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you guys talked about, or is that off the record?
It was off the record.
Okay.
So no. I'll just say I was really impressed with her resume, you know, how she came up through the ranks in Detroit and then in California and did so much with Lucid. And I'm excited to see what she does at Ford. I'm excited to see what Ford does, frankly. You know, they've had bigger and worse problems with EVs than anybody else. And Jim Farley, the CEO, seems to be one of the only big CEOs that's really, I don't want to say speaking out against the administration, but against the idea of tariffs, right? If they have 25% tariffs from Mexico and Canada, Ford isn't going to be as hurt as GM or Stellantis, but he's the only one who's out there saying, hey guys, not a good idea.
Completely. And I mean, talking about Porsche, if tariffs actually happen, Porsche's going to lose out considerably. You know, even to the point where are they going to have to start making SUVs in the United States? Only because how are they going to make any money?
Right. Well, and that would take, imagine how long that would take, because they can't use the Volkswagen plant to build their EVs because it's tooled for the wrong platform.
Right.
So they would have to build a factory from scratch.
Right.
And by the time they're done getting that all set up, I mean, look at how long Blue Oval City is taking in Tennessee.
I know.
That would be the end of the Trump administration. And who knows what the next administration is going to do. You just can't operate in the business environment with this kind of uncertainty. And obviously the price increases on cars that already are too expensive would be insane if we put in 25% tariffs.
Well, yes, I just see this thing from Bloomberg Intelligence. It says that if Trump increases tariffs on cars coming from the EU to 10%, that are currently at 2.5%, to 10%, it'll wipe out more than 2 billion euros of earnings before interest and taxes.
Now, in fairness, by the way, to us, we only tariff them at 2.5%, and they tariff our products at 10%. So the EU started this protectionist
Yes.
sort of back and forth. I think, if they really wanted to send a message to the Trump administration about no tariffs, they should reduce the tariffs that they have on U.S. vehicles.
That'd be great.
By the way, I wanted to point out this story on BMW because as you see, EVs becoming not only accepted by consumers to some extent, and we should point out there's still growth, right, in EV sales.
For sure. It's
You do see, obviously, governments are pushing and really trying to steer people towards EVs because most Western world governments think that they're greener and phase out these bigger motors, right? BMW, after my dream 7 Series in 2022, the 760, will never make a V12 again. And I don't think they've made a 10-cylinder motor since the M5, like 10 or 15 years ago.
That sounds about right.
The V8 is the most cylinders you can get, and I would have thought that's on the chopping block soon as well. But apparently, according to Automotive News, an interview with a BMW executive, it's not.
This is great news. And the main thing that I'm remembering now is like when I first moved to New York, every person who worked in finance had an M3, basically. And most of the M3s in that era were V8s.
Yep.
Which is great. But even at the time, I remember, wasn't the M3 switched to V8 around 2007, 2006?
Yes, it was,
right.
After the E46.
Right, and people were concerned about that switch. But actually, that was a great car. And now, at this point, we're looking back being like, wow, that was such a great car. I wish I had one now. At least I am.
True. You wrote a story about that, right? The E92.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer the E46 M3, but I'm older than you.
Sure.
So for me, that was like in my sweet spot.
Yes. Yes.
But I still want BMWs to have V8 options in different, for example, if I had an X5, is the inline six sufficient? Yes, it really is. But would I rather have the V8, the M50? Yes, I would.
I mean, I truly don't care really as long as something gets the job done what's under the hood. But theoretically, I totally agree with you. Has BMW said why they're keeping the V8 other than it sells?
Because Americans want it. No, it's it's purely American demand.
Well, that's simple.
Yeah.
And
that's how businesses work.
I was going to say, this is a great example of the automaker listening to what consumers actually want and doing that.
Yes, but not being deterred by governments saying you can and can't do this and that.
Sure. And we all know the famous Henry Ford quote, if I had listened to what people wanted, they would have wanted a faster horse, or something to that effect. Yeah. So, and that's somehow supposed to prove that automakers have to be visionary and forward-thinking and plan, decades in advance. And all of that is true. But also, it's sometimes you overthink these things, and really the best thing is to just give consumers what they want.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The problem is consumers don't always want what we want them to want, right? I think BMW should sell a 3 Series station wagon with a V8
manual
and a stick.
Yeah, of course.
In brown, but they won't, You know what? Speaking of consumers giving us what we want, I want to talk about this Corvette story.
Yeah.
Because the ZR1 is already an absolute monster. 1,064 horsepower, right? 828 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60, not that it matters, but 2.3 seconds, and a top speed of 233 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an absolute beast.
And it starts at like 180 or so thousand?
Yep, 174.
Okay. So that, to me, that's a pretty good deal, to be honest.
It's, I think, amazing. I personally wouldn't want one because I'd rather have a Z06, a naturally aspirated, V8 that puts out more than 600 horsepower.
That tracks. That definitely tracks for you.
But if you want the king of the hill, this is it. And there's a great story in Car and Driver that the Corvette team went around to a bunch of famous tracks in the U.S. and just knocked out lap records.
This is honestly so cool. And they did it with their own engineers.
That's, to me, the most exciting part, because you always hear about, these Nürburgring records where they hire some amazing driver and they wait, hopefully they get perfect conditions. And, that doesn't really mean much to me. It's so controlled. And I think, I would never be able to squeeze, 90% out of that car. I don't think I would be able to do it in this car either. But GM has some obviously very talented drivers working for them as engineers.
This Aaron Link, the global vehicle performance manager, is out there setting on VIR, setting course records. I mean,
he said, so Aaron Link, as you said, global vehicle performance manager, sets production car course record on the full course and the grand course layout. And that takes the title, at least the grand course title, from the 2019 McLaren Senna. That
is so cool and legit.
So lead performance engineer Bill Wise, I'm reading here from Car and Driver. He set a new track record at Watkins Glen. Brian Wallace, the lead vehicle dynamics engineer, broke the production record at Road America.
They've got a stacked team.
Chris Barber, the lead development engineer, broke the production car record at Road Atlanta. I mean, how sweet is this?
That is crazy. And I think we should also point out the McLaren Senna is $1 million+ car.
Right.
I mean, to beat that with this homespun seeming down home group of guys who are the engineers and the product managers out there burning it down. That's
in
a
basically 200,000. I mean, I don't know how much the total price was, but like we said, the base price is $174, $175. This one apparently had the ZTK performance package.
Definitely, they had it souped up.
But these are things that you can buy. These are factory options, right? It just adds a rear wing, a more aggressive spoiler, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, and beefed up suspension, the magnetic ride control.
Just
so I'm
goes
sure
to show it's a great sports car.
It's probably less than $200,000 for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of value for money, let's talk a little bit about this Mercedes auction that we were talking about last week. So my buddy Philip Richter had this Mercedes R129 SL600, a 2001 V12 Mercedes. And you wrote a story about these as well, the R129.
Yeah, they're so cool. They're the perfect era of 2001 is basically the 90s still, which is this ultra cool era of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls and the best era of rap and all of these great things.
Well, don't forget about grunge, right? I mean,
grunge as well.
Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains,
Hole.
Nine Inch Nails. It's not.
I was listening to Ring Finger this morning and thinking that is a great song.
Jane's Addiction. I mean, so many insane bands came out in the span of. I think most of those bands were from 1999 until 2001, right? Anyway, so this car, it's a halo car for Mercedes. I don't think they put the V12 in anything anymore either, right?
I don't think so.
I mean, they didn't stop for a little while longer. But so Philip Richter has a cream puff with only 186 miles. He puts it on Bring a Trailer through this other business. This dude, Dean, auctions it for him. But this is a car that he bought it from the first owner, and it's always been serviced at the same dealer where it was purchased, and it's perfect.
So this was a very interesting sale. I have to say, I think he did pretty good for himself because I'm on Haggerty.com right now, and I can see that the average price for a 2001 Mercedes SL600 in good condition is $25,000.
But this is way better than good condition.
Okay, so one in Concours condition, mint condition, is only $74,000.
Okay, but this is even beyond that. I mean, this is still new in the wrapper.
It can't be that much more beyond it. I mean, how much newer can you get than Concours mint condition?
I don't know as much about these things as you do. But I have seen 40-year-old virgin, so I know that if the toy is still completely wrapped up and no one has ever played with it, it's much more valuable.
I do think it's a little weird that I got a PR email about this car. This was after the fact. We had already spoken about it, but then I did get an email from someone in a PR company like telling me about the car, which is weird because most cars on Bring a Trailer don't have a PR company behind them.
True. And that was as the auction was live, you got the email.
Right. Which, I mean, that's a little... And then, you know, to have there was one bidder who bid straight into $185,000 on the first day.
So we should say that the auction starts on February 4th. It gets a bid for $2,000. Then a couple more, driving it up to like
bids.
120. Sure. And then all of a sudden some dude comes in and bids 185 on
just
120. Just
swoops in and shuts everyone down.
But this is still 4 hours into the auction, not even, right?
Yes.
And then nothing happens for the next week.
Crickets. Complete crickets for a week. And then on the last day, someone
dude
else
from Dubai, a dealership,
who his track record, I looked at his winning history on Bring a Trailer. He doesn't go for great looking cars, let me tell you. This is by far the best car he's bought in a while. Just bids $1,000 more and wins with no counterbid.
I can't believe he expected to even get it, to be honest. If you see it's been sitting at 185 for a week, and then everyone's waiting until the last minute, and so he's like, all right, I'll bid $1,000 over. And then the dude who was so enthusiastic that he bid 185 doesn't come back.
There's no repartee. There's no retort. There's no...
He loses the car for $1,000.
That to me seems so weird to me.
I'm doubly shocked because then I read through the comments. There were like 200 different comments, and the window sticker was included in the pictures. Everything was included.
Sure.
Like the seller did an amazing job.
The receipts.
It went for $132 new in 2001. Mm-hmm. In today's money, I got to figure that's at least double. Someone in the comments said in today's money that's $240,000. And I also feel like in Dubai, the dealer is going to put that on the floor and get
for sure
a pretty hefty profit.
Yeah, I mean, in Dubai, I'm guessing probably the market for this type of car is not as healthy. There are not as many options for a 2001 Mercedes SL600 in Dubai, I'm guessing, as in Neptune, New Jersey.
Right.
So it's obviously going to be, a big fish.
And car people love the designer, Bruno Sacco. And this was like his last great masterpiece, right?
I do think these cars are probably slightly on the rise in value, no question about it. This one, I mean, I just can't get over the low mile. To me, that's honestly such a turnoff. I just roll my, I'm like, oh, and that reminds me, we should talk about this email we got from a listener named Rick. And thank you for writing, Rick. And I totally agree with Rick's point. He brings up a point about the economics of, quote unquote, basically saving a potentially valuable car in a garage for its entire life. It costs money to store and insure, and it's a constant struggle against rust, dry rot, and nesting squirrels. But what a smart investment.
Yeah, no, and he's talking specifically about this SL600. So I have been thinking about this as well. Now, to be fair, my buddy didn't buy this from the original purchaser, so maybe he got it for less than the sticker, right? But
sure, very
I agree with his. I've always thought about this. If you go and buy a car new, say I go out and buy what's a car that a Porsche 911 Dakar.
Okay. Sure.
I would love to have one.
I'd love to see you in one with that flannel shirt you got on.
Or you know what? Say I go and buy a 911 ST while we're on 911s, right? This is a car that's very limited. Mm-hmm. It's a dream car for sure, and it's going to appreciate, or at least I assume it is, over the next few years guaranteed, but I figure 25 years for sure, right? Then I put it away and never drive it. If I bought one for $250 and then, in 25 years I only got like $350 for it, I would be pretty
You're gonna
bummed
be
out.
super
And it would be
bummed.
would have been a horrible investment, right?
Completely. And think of all the money that you spent to store it and insure it and
Exactly.
to keep it running. And this guy, Rick, he has such a good point. He says, short of bubble wrapping a 250 GTO, few cars are going to beat the S&P 500 index if you're looking for a long-term investment. And that's so true.
Yes,
and
it is.
It just goes back to this common sense thing where, yeah, some cars gain value over time, but most don't. And if you buy a car that you truly like for yourself and you drive it, then no matter what, you will have had a great investment because you enjoyed it. And maybe you make money on the back end, and that's a bonus. But the least you can say is, hey, I lost some coin on this, but I had so much fun in it. I was a happy trade-off, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, on a side note, I want to just tell you one thing that in the car world, people may not have heard about this, but in my day job as a financial news anchor, there's a story that I can't get over. And you mentioned the S&P appreciation, right?
Okay.
The S&P 500 has done very well since I was born in 1973, like 6,000%. But gold has done even better, right?
Ooh.
Gold is up
Ooh.
more like 7,000%. And I came across a story this week that's not about cars, but I still think you'll find it fascinating if you haven't heard. The U.S. Treasury owns like 261 million ounces of gold, right?
Okay.
At Fort
Okay.
Knox, under the Federal
Yes.
Reserve here in
Okay.
New York. On its balance sheet, the Treasury last valued its gold holdings the year I was born in 1973 at $42.22 an ounce.
Okay.
This week, gold traded for more than $2,900 an ounce.
Wow.
So the Treasury on its balance sheet is valuing its gold holdings at 11 billion measly dollars. If they would mark their gold holdings to market to today's price, it would be worth almost $800 billion.
So what does that mean for us?
Well, for the U.S., what this means is we're undervaluing the assets that our Treasury holds.
Okay.
And, okay, it's an accounting issue, but what they could do through a repurchase agreement with the Fed is say, listen, we'll sell you this now and promise to buy it back later at the same price. What you do is then the Fed creates $750 billion
Yes.
and sends them to the Treasury general account. And then the Treasury all of a sudden is sitting on more than $750 billion that it doesn't have to issue in bonds. And by the way, that's about 1/4's issuance in U.S. Treasury debt. So they could issue only 3/4 of that debt than they normally would in the year, and it, I think, could bring interest rates down dramatically.
I think that's a genius plan. I think we should advocate for that.
I won't claim credit for it. I read this story in the FT. Jillian Tett, who's
Yes.
an awesome columnist, wrote about it there. And today I was talking to, on my television show, I was talking to Kevin Hassett, who's the director of the NEA in the Trump administration. And I asked if he'd thought about it. And he said he hasn't studied the idea, but he thought it
Yes.
was an excellent column in the FT. He also read it.
Well, does this for me mean I do have a gold plug? Like, I do have someone who can get gold from Africa at a good rate. Does this mean I need to buy more, buy a
No.
bar?
No, I don't think it means
Because I
much.
will.
I don't think it means much for the price of gold.
I can liquidate. I can sell a
Because
car.
it wouldn't involve this repurchase agreement, actual
Okay.
sale of the gold. But
Oh.
what I do
Well, that's
think
not
it
as
means is, so I was looking at Harleys today. I'm so excited to go to
Big
Austin
surprise.
and ride motorcycles.
Uh-huh.
And I saw at least this dealership, Wolverine Harley Davidson in Michigan, has got a special deal, a financing deal, 1.49%, zero down, which is sick, right?
Cool. Yeah.
But I don't want a new Harley. I
No.
want to buy an older one. And what are interest rates? I mean, hopefully I can buy it in cash. But if I were going to borrow money to buy an older motorcycle, what are interest rates on a used motorcycle? Probably like
I have no
10%.
idea.
Probably
That seems wildly high.
no, but I
wildly
mean,
high.
used car interest rates are also like 9, 10, 11%. If you want to take a loan to buy a used car, the lender isn't going to give you the kind of rate he's going to give you on a new car because there's more risk.
Sure. Yeah,
If the Treasury would do this plan, maybe we could get those rates down, and more of us could finance vehicles.
Well, that'd be good. I think that'd be good. I've never financed a vehicle, so I'm really speaking from a hypothetical perspective here.
Oh, my goodness.
But, yeah. I only deal in gold, bullion.
Wow.
And Corvettes.
Anyway, that's my fun story.
What are you doing for Valentine's? Let's talk.
For Valentine's Day, that's a damn good question, actually. I don't have a plan yet.
Uh-oh. Okay, never mind.
No, but thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
I will make a plan.
It is Friday. A little token. Doesn't have to be much.
I will be doing a little token for sure
a photo,
on Valentine's Day.
A flower, just a little remembrance. Goes a long way.
I probably will take my wife out to dinner, but I hate that because they charge more.
I know they do. It's unfair.
You know what I think I might do now? I'm going to try and get somebody not only to babysit the kids, but to take them out of the house.
Oh, that's great. Then
I will cook dinner. But no kids.
That's wonderful.
What about you? What's the...
We're going to have... I'm actually excited about this because Valentine's Day is really tricky. We're having a non-Valentine's Day party on Valentine's Day, and it's called a Bleeding Hearts Party. And we're inviting a bunch of friends, and it's just an excuse to get together and hang out and eat cake and drink.
But it's not a Valentine's... It's specifically not a Valentine's Day party.
No, I mean, the cake's going to be shaped like a heart for fun. But it's a non-Valentine's Day party on Valentine's Day.
But you can bring your Valentine.
Sure,
right?
Of course. You can bring your Valentine. You can be sweet, but it's not gonna be any sort of thing that makes people who don't necessarily have a Valentine feel any kind of way. It's just a party to see friends.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it's an excuse to have a party.
That's so inclusive of you.
Yeah, well, I'm all about it.
All right,
everyone's got their own thing going.
And we'll be waiting on this Macan review on Bloomberg.com.
Yeah. Can't wait to write it.
Or on the terminal.
That's right.
And then, let's see, what am I driving? Tomorrow I'm going to pick up a new Land Rover Discovery.
Ooh, Disco.
The new Disco, which, I don't really think it's that exciting, but will be a good car for the snow.
Is there snow on the road right now?
Our roads are, for the most part, salted, but it's coming, or at least maybe freezing rain. We have, on the East Coast, 100 million Americans under some sort of winter weather advisory.
Uh-huh. That's extreme. I hope you can use that truck on the road.
All right, that's all I got then for this week.
Cool.
Hopefully we get some more good emails.
Yeah, I think we will.
hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
That's it.
Write us. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.